The MLB season will start on time. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. It is great to be here with all of you today. 11:32 a.m. here on the East Coast, February 2nd, 2021. It is Tuesday here, a relatively cold, snowy day. The snow appears to be slowing down to some extent and should be all but done. As always, joined alongside by Gavin. Tony, before we get to you, Gavin, it is officially above freezing right now. So, for all my fellow golfers out there, the melting process begins. But first of all, Gavin, how are you doing today?
Zach, I'm doing good. It's been an eventful morning over here on my side of the neighborhood. It's crazy, Zach. I've only been up for 4 hours and woke up early for class to be told it was going to end in 5 minutes. And Zach, I know we weren't too fond about that, and then to have to show out some snow and, ladies and gentlemen, just be safe outside. It is wild outside. But Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Look, we have a lot to break down today. We do unfortunately only have a half hour today, but that's no problem because we can get through all of our big things today. Again, Super Bowl media night kicked off last night. Nothing too notable, given that it's virtual. But of course, as we get closer to the Super Bowl, we'll be able to get picks in. We'll go through. We will spend Friday. It's going to be a fun show. We're going through all the prop bets, and Gavin and I are going to mark them down. And whoever wins is going to get a prize from the other person. So, including the color of the Gatorade, the color of the mask that the players are wearing on the sideline. It's going to be a fun one. I got to print that out. It's been a while since we've done something like that.
I'm still waiting on my wings, sir. Just letting you know that.
I know we got to get out there. Look, the restaurants are open again. We do have to get out there. We are overdue for it. That is for sure.
That's the one part for the school aspect. That's the one thing I hated was when they push the times up, and when we get this nice little break in between, or some days we don't have nothing. No one wants to go eat wings at 7:30 in the morning because nothing is open at 7:30 in the morning. So
I can't agree more. Unfortunately, Inferno wings hit a little different on an empty stomach. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend that at all. But look, let's get started with it. The MLB season is expected to start as normal. This is a shocker to me because the players, being the players, messed up in their entirety last year. They had an opportunity to be the first and only sport to be up and running. Of course, it's been a dying sport the last few years. But all things considered, yes, we're still Phillies fans as much as we might be dissatisfied with the team right now. When you take a look at everything, this season is expected to start on time in a 162-game season. No designated hitter in the NL, and they are removing the rule of second base in the 10th inning. At least from what I've heard, that's what it sounds like. Gavin, what are some of your thoughts on the resume to normal kind of? I guess this is kind of the first take of sports game fans, all things like that. Of course, you're going to be limited at most. But, yeah, I mean, things are going back to normal for their extended temporary changes were temporary, and now that's what we're looking at for an MLB season.
Well, Zach, first of all, I don't know how fond I am about getting rid of the DH for NL. I actually kind of like that, Zach. I like to see more off. Got pitchers Clayton Kershaw, here and there. But all in all, Zach, I'm not too fond to hear that. But I will say this: when it comes to the season starting on time, I like that. It's about time, Zach. Let's go back to July, June, where they could have been the only sport. Yes, Zach. The UFC was fighting here and there, but that was once a month and more like at the end of the month, maybe once every other month, actually. So you could have been the first day-to-day sport back, but instead of fixing a dying sport and being able to reach the younger generation, you didn't. You bickered, you argued. You were worse than Caillou, who all he did was teach us how to complain. Zach, you remember Caillou, the bald baby from your childhood? Yeah, he didn't really teach me nothing. All to do is to complain until get what he wants. But Zach, enough said there. When it comes to baseball, this is a good start. All right, this season, I'm actually really excited for the season, Zach. Not about our team, but about other teams. Like the Padres, you got the Dodgers, they're being the defending champs. The Yankees got a new identity. The Blue Jays are finding their pace. And the New York Mets are going to be better. Zach, baseball's fun to watch again. All right? If you can go, that'll be even better, Zach. Maybe we'll get the pleasure of going to a game this year and then watching the garbageness up front. Maybe we'll have to travel to another stadium to go watch something better than what we got going on here. But, Zach, back in a time where sports seemed irrelevant and hard to bring back, there was a chance for this league to come back. And you came back at a time the NBA finals and the NBA playoffs and MLB playoffs are just about to get started. So no one cared. No one cared to watch you till playoff time.
No, I agree. I think that this year for baseball was definitely they dropped the ball a lot. But again, baseball starts. I mean, pitchers and catchers report in a few weeks. We're not getting an official word on that yet. Still learning about the spring training schedule. And on top of all of that, the starting season, the actual Phillies schedule for this year, the 162 games that they intend to play. As far as vaccine rollouts, it's probably going to be happening for that group of people, the players, around April or May. So I think early in the season it could be bumpy, it could be a rough start, but things could start to iron out really. The same way they did last year, even without the use of vaccination for the players that would need it. And for guys like Didi Gregorius, who of course has some pre-existing conditions, where last year was a contemplating decision for him, I'm sure that he can get his vaccine sooner than later and will be able to have more confidence stepping onto that field. Look,
save my guy Joe Girardi, please.
For sure, I think that I don't want to sit here and say that we're over this pandemic. We sure as heck aren't. We're on day 335 today. It sounds crazy, but the end is in sight. I'm not going to say it's immediately near. I'm not going to say it's going to be over tomorrow, but the end is in sight. And as horrible as it's been, people that have been taken, we know how severe this pandemic has been, not only from that the actual COVID side, but the business side, the job loss, everything along those lines as well has been harmful. And we're all ready to be done with this, trust me. And I'm sure that the people that are fighting every day to save lives also want this to be over. And thank you to all them who have done their work. And they're who we compare with the players last year. We're complaining with the money. It all comes back to that. It all comes back to those Blake Snell Twitch stream comments. It all comes back to Bryce Harper's seconding of that. That's a stain on the MLB, and it will be remembered for quite some time.
Zach, I took mad offense to what Blake Snell said. Zach, we both have working parents. We do know how, the everyday, and you hear a guy that, gets millions of dollars complain about a half-cut season. That was kind of a slap in the face to the average American. Talk about Zach, let's think about it. If you don't, you're in this class where if he didn't play, he would have been fine. Right, Zach? And I said this a couple months ago. If LeBron James, Steph Curry, Blake Snell, Bryce Harper for sure. Oh my goodness. And Mike Trout, if they didn't play, Zach, they would have made it through the year with no problem. Zach, let the average American not work for a year or for how long, and let's see who will be where at the end of the year. Zach, I think I know the answer. You know the answer. We all know what the answer would be. They wouldn't be nowhere where they were when they started to where they ended. Zach, that's how I took that comment mad offensive. But on the baseball aspect, Zach, you're right. It's going to leave a stain. You're going to be known as the league that has a commissioner that is not well liked and has a player association that tries to get what they want. Zach, the dying sport, and it's a shame because there's a lot of good talent in that dying sport. Ronald Acuna, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, the list goes on. But people aren't going to remember because you're not reaching out to the young generation. You had a chance. There was no sports on. Zach, I was watching the Korean Baseball League at 7:30 in the morning because that's how bad I wanted to watch baseball. I didn't know half the players on there. But, Zach, I wanted to see baseball, and I'm the younger generation. You could have reached me, but they didn't. I had to find baseball on my own.
Yeah, we all became NC Dino fans for the time being. Yeah. Look, baseball dropped the ball last year. They knew it. They probably know it. They have no intentions of doing that this year. It's going to be a fun baseball season for those who are fans, but again, it's still a dying sport. The revenue is still lost, but this is one of the more preserved leagues for that. Every team is experiencing revenue loss. You can spend as much as you want. It's not like we're going to be losing $20 million if you're an NFL organization or you're worried you might do that. I like not having a hard cap. Of course, it gives teams like the Yankees and the Phillies advantages over teams like the Oakland Athletics and a few other teams in not as well-funded areas. But at the same time, look, your profit losses, you get to control that as an organization. You get to control where the money goes. You get to control everything along those lines. And so with that being said, baseball needs to have a major comeback this year in order to get their viewers back. They're going to need that fans at some point to afford. And look, going into the summer, going into April, May, June, July, there should be increased amounts of fans. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say anything stupid or irresponsible that's not based off the medical facts, but I think that there's going to be a better chance than none that we will get more and more fans as the season goes on.
Zach, I feel like that's with every sport. We're going to get more and more as the year goes on. I would think by the season of 2022 for the NBA, or excuse me, 2021 next year, 2022 season, we will be at full capacity with fans.
That's what I hope. I mean, it's based off how everything plays out. We'll be here for it. With that being said, coming up after this, LeBron James getting in an altercation with a few fans in Atlanta, thrown out of the stadium. LeBron not thrown out of that game. He had some comments to say after that. We'll get Gavin and my thoughts after this.
We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom-designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewers' choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode.
All right, so in Atlanta, where they do have fans, apparently they were heckling with LeBron James. LeBron James answered back. Those fans were removed from the stadium. It's unknown if LeBron will get any fine or anything along those lines from the NBA. He said yesterday it was good to have fans back. That's an interesting take to take afterwards, given all the circumstances. But Gavin, what are some of your thoughts here? Of course, the Lakers defeating the Atlanta Hawks last night. That's more irrelevant in this situation, but still on that long road trip before they get home.
Well, Zach, my first initial thought was I laughed because this is LeBron James. We didn't think LeBron James would get into any competition with a fan. Zach, I wouldn't even call that competition. I think something was said. LeBron took exception and said something back, and then you know how the media makes it bigger than it has to be, Zach. I didn't appreciate her not wearing her mask or close to the players. You should be more thoughtful than that. My second thought was this. You can't make these players untouchable. All right, this is not Malice of the Palace where you're in the stands, punching people with Steven Jackson and Meta World Peace or Ron Artest, whatever his name is now. But Zach, when you get close like that, Zach, I had the honor to sit there close, and yes, players can hear you. Players can hear what you say. Now, you're going to hear some things, Zach. That's everywhere we go. You're going to hear things. People are going to talk. People are going to speak. As long as what you say isn't crossing the line, Zach, and you know what I mean by crossing the line, racially, personally, talk about the game. That's cool. Talk about how garbage I am. Talk about Michael Jordan. Talk about how Michael Jordan is better than me. That's fine because that's heckling. But when you take, but you can't say things that cross the line. So when I saw LeBron James, my first instinct was, what did she say that made him act like that? Because Zach, as much as I get on LeBron James, I have to say he's a first class citizen. He handles his business well. Zach, you couldn't answer a better role model like that. But what was said to him? That's all I want to know. It's always you hear one side, but I always got to hear the other side. Whatever you said must have had LeBron James wrong. It's like Klay Thompson in Milwaukee. Something was said to him, and everybody took exception to it. Russell Westbrook, when the Philly fans, Zach, and that probably made you smile when the Phillies fan gave the Russell Westbrook the double bird. Some things that just people take exception to. Isaiah Thomas.
I just remember he was walking to the locker room and someone said something to him, and he so quickly turned around and looked like he was going to charge them. I hope it was nothing that was obviously personal, severely hurt. But I just remember the way he turned around and looked. It was like he was going to kill them.
But also too, Zach, we gotta remember that these guys are people too. Yes, Zach, they're people. That if you put one person, you put a group of 30 people, their salary won't match up to theirs, but they're still humans at the end of the day. They have feelings too. Some things, take this for example. When Kyrie Irving, everybody talks about Kyrie Irving's a bad guy. Or no, not even Kyrie. Let's talk about Steph Curry. Steph Curry, something was said to Steph Curry when he was walking out of the locker room. He turned around and said, "What'd you say?" Fans think they're untouchable. Fans think you pay, you say whatever you want. These guys, at the end of the day, these guys are people too. DeMarcus Cousins got on an old reporter about talking about his brother. You don't do things like that.
Isaiah Thomas had that thing in Philly a few years ago where he said it was the frosty freeze out, and he wanted to miss the free throw, and I guess he said something to him. Now, there's a line. There's a hard line that you can cross disrespecting NBA players. It goes on both sides. When you pay to come in, you have to be respectful. At the same time, if you're a player, you need to know your limits. If LeBron James is going to respond to a fan, they reach their limit. I will say that. If Russell Westbrook's clapping at a fan in the crowd based on his history, I'd say more than likely it's not necessarily something severely bad. But if you're LeBron James and you're turning around and talking to a fan, obviously the line was crossed. I need to know more about it to increase the awareness because you need to know, especially now when being able to go to a basketball game is a pure privilege given the circumstances. Arguably shouldn't even be there right now, but Georgia's been open for a while now, and
Georgia's been open ever since.
I think honestly, look, you can be a fan, you can heckle, you can say things like you just pointed out, Gavin, but there is a hard line that you cannot cross, and I'd be curious to know if LeBron is willing to open up more about it to increase the awareness for fans to know what they can and can't say at the court. Go there, have fun, say something funny to the players. Honestly, like go to Damian Lillard and say Steph Curry's better than you, and he'll knock down a three and stare right at you. I'm pretty sure he actually did that once. But he also, I think, one time when Steph Curry did the 1-2-3, I think he was also talking to a fan. There's some fun times in golf. There's a lot of fun back and forth between spectators and players, but there is a hard line that you should not and never really should cross. And
Washington.
LeBron James is one to open up and speak more about it. I'd be curious to hear.
Zach, Washington. Let's go back. Washington, when we first got Bryce Harper, they talk about they wish his son had, what was it, a disease. You don't do that. There's fine line. Exactly. There's fine lines. Just think, Zach, if I were to go to a Lakers game, if I'm talking trash about LeBron James and how bad he is of a basketball player, that's because of the game, Zach. But once you take it outside the game, once you bring somebody that has nothing to do with the game, that's when the fine line is crossed. Zach, something was said. If you get LeBron James, are all people to turn around. And if you're not a star of his stature, that is saying, like in the documentary of Jordan, the Last Dance documentary, when Scottie Pippen and I want to say that was the New York Knicks guy, Spike Lee, when he said something to Spike Lee and Scottie Pippen returned favor. But once again, that's star. You're just an ordinary person and you cross the line. Zach, you talk about Russell Westbrook's history. There's sometimes when things were said to Russell Westbrook. I'll never forget this. Russell Westbrook in Utah, something Richard said to Russell Westbrook. He took exception to it, and then they kicked out Russell Westbrook. So we have to know as fans right now, if you go to any sporting event, that's a privilege, all right? Because we don't know the next time everybody's going to be in there. If you get a chance to go, you get a ticket to go. It's a privilege. You better be on your best behavior.
I agree. I think that, look, it's been gone for the last year, the back and forth between players and fans. I don't think this would really be a topic that we'd be talking about right now if being a fan was as rare as it is right now. So I think during regular times this is blown over. But yes, given right now, you have a situation where fans are rare in a lot, especially in NBA games right now. So that's just an interesting thing to have. Of course, with golf, I'm not sure this week coming up is the Phoenix Open. I'm not sure if there is going to be any spectators. For those who don't know, TPC Scottsdale is where you have that 17th hole with an entire stadium built around it. That's where they're playing this week. But there's heckling there. Patrick Reed just won the last tournament. He's been heckled all the time for the one time that he gave himself a better lie in the bunker. This week there was more controversial things, but I think that was overblown. But this is part of the sport. It's part of sports, but there is a line that can be crossed.
There's a fine line, Zach. I think that goes, and that just trickles down. Let's kick sports out. There's a fine line that you can say to people and what you can't say to people. Zach, that goes everywhere. It just happened. That was in front of, I won't say national television. That wasn't national television game, but you came at the supposed to be the best player in the world right now, Zach. We can argue about that another time, but you came at him and whatever you said must have reserved the response because Zach, I don't know. He barely responds to anybody.
For sure. Well, look, coming up after this, one of the biggest games of the year, the Los Angeles Clippers and the Brooklyn Nets. If everybody on both sides is playing and healthy, which is what it's looking like, it's going to be a fun game, as well as the Warriors and the Boston Celtics tonight. We're going to get predictions for those two key games. And finally, my bold take for comeback player of the year next season. Stay tuned.
Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see two links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this.
Before we get to our last two topics of the day, we have breaking news out of EA Sports Incorporated. College football is coming back. We don't know when. We don't know more details at the moment. There are bills in Congress that are trying to get the NCAA to allow their players to profit off their name, which means that we can actually see names in the game. But at the moment, it looks like there might be a good chance coming into next year that there is going to be an NCAA football 22. Gavin, some thoughts on that?
It's been too long, Zach. Let me tell you, dude. Now I used to do the little career mode where you get your team ranked and stuff. It's like I was ranked 1. All right, I'll never forget this. Ranked number 1. All right, back in the time I was using Temple. I don't know how I got them ranked 1, but listen, Zach, it was fantastic. and I went and and I lost. I lost one game to Georgia, and I want to talk about it.
I'll do it to you.
I went from 1 to 15. Never got back to 1 ever again. But it's like it's good to see that come back. But I'm interested in basketball. College basketball is where it's at for me.
You can make the edits now. You can play with Duke and other teams if you do download the roster, but it's hidden as other teams, so it's not as fun. But you can do it at least. But with that being said, Gavin, let's get to our major story here. Clippers Nets tonight, 7:30, and then of course the other games tonight at 10 o'clock. The Celtics and the Warriors in San Francisco. Let's start with the first game. Who are you taking in this potential NBA Finals preview?
Zach, I'm taking the Brooklyn Nets. Here's why. We talk about how bad their defense is. I get that. But the teams they face, all right, we know the Brooklyn Nets defense is the worst defense right now, arguably. But Zach, their firepower is amazing. And when all three play, Zach, they only lost because they didn't have the third star there. Zach, James Harden.
I'm sorry. If you're saying that they can't beat if they can't beat the Wizards without James Harden when you already have Kyrie and KD.
Well, hold on. That's not what I'm saying. Well, first of all, Zach, when was the last time you ever heard Russell Westbrook for three is good? When was the last time you ever heard that? It's been a while.
He scored 149 points. Where'd the other 146 come from?
Where'd
the other 146 come from?
When was the last time Russell Westbrook was unconscious from three? They scored 6.7 seconds, Zach. Come on.
That's a lot of points. 120 maybe. 146, 149. Come on. Back-to-back nights. No, they're not winning tonight. Brooklyn is not going to win tonight.
Zach, they're
exhausted. They're tired. The Clippers are a great team defensively. They're not going to be able to stop them, but they can slow them down. And Kawhi's going to feast tonight. Kawhi
is not going to have a good – it's going to be a Paul George night tonight, and it's not going to be enough. Zach, give me the Brooklyn Nets. Sadly, I'm going to say 135 to 140 because that's how bad the defense is.
Yes, for any bettors out there, bet the over on this game. I would take that in a heartbeat. And then finally, the other game of the night, Gavin's Golden State Warriors against the Boston Celtics in San Francisco. On paper, the Celtics are better. They have not played up to that level. No one's stopping Wiseman is out, but no one's stopping Steph Curry tonight. I know he's got Kevon Looney in that starting lineup tonight. This is going to be a close game, but coming off of losing to the Lakers, if you're the Celtics, it's tough. But on a road trip against this team, I'm going to go with Boston tonight. I think they're going to squeak away with it just barely, but it's going to be a higher scoring game.
Zach, if James Wiseman was here, I would have totally picked the Golden State Warriors. I'm rolling with Boston tonight. Zach, Steph Curry's going to have a great night, but it's going to be one of those situations where he's going to need a number two to help him win this game. He doesn't have one this year. So I'm rolling with the Boston Celtics tonight. But Cardiac Kemba, Zach, going for 30.
All right, let's take a look. The UConn alumni, of course, referring to there. And now finally, what arguably will be a little bit more controversial of a topic. Next year's Comeback Player of the Year award. This year, it's arguably going to Big Ben or possibly a couple other players are in that conversation. Some early candidates for next year, Saquon Barkley, Dak Prescott. And yes, for me, my pick, Carson Wentz. And here's why. Nick Sirianni, look, no one's thrilled with that hire. No one's really thrilled with it. When he became the wide receivers coach in San Diego, which was San Diego at the time, Keenan Allen won the Comeback Player of the Year that year. His first year as offensive coordinator in Indianapolis, Andrew Luck won Comeback Player of the Year. There's something about this guy. He's able to revive some of these guys' careers. I could see Carson Wentz, if he doesn't win it, being a top 3 candidate, possibly with those 2 other NFC East players.
See, you're going to pin me as a bad guy because I like Wentz. I like Brother Wentz, but Zach, that's not happening, all right? You're telling me he's going to have a better comeback year than Dak Prescott, than Saquon Barkley? Come on, man. I mean, come on, man. Look, I like that. I like that. Like this concept. I like your thought process, but I don't see it. I really don't see it, Zach. I don't even know if he's going to be here next year. I don't know. I don't know yet. Shout out to Jared Goff and Matt Stafford for ruining that for us because we don't know what's going to go on.
Well, that's good for us. That gives, if we do trade Carson Wentz, that gives us more value now because other teams are going to do it. But listen, if Carson Wentz is here next year and he's named a starter, he wins Comeback Player of the Year. All right? You don't fall off a cliff that quickly. You don't go from having an 100-plus passer rating, the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for more than 4,000 yards without a single wide receiver posing over 500 yards. You don't throw 30 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and then go down straight to garbage. The O-line was horrible this year. The wide receiving core got worse. Zach Ertz was hurt in and out of the lineup. Doug Peterson's play calling was horrible. Carson got in his own head. His mechanics are broken. No one held him accountable. All right, Carson Wentz, I think personally, from what I've heard in the past, besides these anonymous reports, which stay anonymous for a very clear reason, they're probably not 100% true. Look, even Malcolm Jenkins said it. Someone's got to keep him in check. All right, they were afraid of his ego. The fact when the first question they asked him after that Green Bay game was like, "Yeah, I didn't really know what was going on." No one had, no one had the, I'm referring to tell him, "Hey, you're benched now." No one had that confidence, or I guess that's the word I'll use. No one had that level of confidence to go up to him and say, "You are benched. You are playing terrible. You are not going to take another snap this season." No one told him that. Sirianni better hold him accountable. And if he does that and you surround him with good pieces, you sign Allen Robinson, you get Devontae Smith, the O-line essentially helps itself. There's no reason to believe the kid can't do well this year. There's no reason. I'm sorry, there's not. Look at Phillip Rivers. He could be the comeback player of the year the way he played last season. Come on, man. You're making Phillip Rivers work well. That O-line is almost as good. The Eagles O-line is almost as good as Indianapolis's. I'll take Miles Sanders over Jonathan Taylor by a slight amount. I wouldn't take our wide receiver core, but Nick Sirianni knows a thing or two about reviving players' careers.
All right, Zach, you're right. He does, because Keenan Allen did win comeback player, but once again, Keenan Allen was a stud. All right, Andrew Luck never lost it. He just couldn't stand upright to save his life. So Zach, if this guy Nick Sirianni or whatever his name is can revive this man's career, I won't say nothing bad about Nick Sirianni ever again. But I will say this. Zach, that's a bold statement you just put out there. A lot of people that are going to watch this after the live are going to look at you and say, if this doesn't happen, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? Because, Zach, here's my thing. Carson Wentz was playing a lot of hero ball. I understand there's nobody else around you, so you're trying to make things happen. All right? The frustration was mad real for Carson Wentz last year. I get it. All right? We've seen it. Zach, when you're playing with nobody, really,
no one's denying that he played god awful last year. I'm not. Yeah, I can't meet a single person that says Carson Wentz played bad. When you can, I'll let you go in a second. The reason that you get rid of your quarterback when you no longer have a legitimate reason for why they're playing poorly, that's when you move on. There's too many reasons, and I'm defending Hurts with the exact same stuff. Hurts was getting drilled against the Cowboys. Like I'm defending either one. I don't care who's back there. This team is built terribly.
That falls on one person, but Zach, my thing is this. Yes, I want to see Carson Wentz do well again. I don't think he's going to be comeback player of the year. But how about this, Zach? You ever heard this? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We know Carson Wentz is broken because of the play calling, right? But I never seen someone digress that badly. That's the thing.
His mechanics are flawed. He has flawed mechanics.
Exactly. That's my only thing I'm worried about. If you can fix stuff like that, because it's like when it gets embedded in your head that stuff like that's going to happen over and over and over again. This comment says right, 14 different O-lines is a problem. That is true. All right.
Either quarterback, for those out there who think we don't defend Jalen Hurts, for either quarterback, it causes issues.
I will say this, Zach. Carson Wentz will have a better year than this past year. All right, I agree with you on that. But comeback player of the year, that might be a little too far fetched.
The odds are when they come out, I would bet that in a heartbeat. I think, look, I would not call myself – if Carson Wentz comes out and throws 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and has a pass rating of 95+, and this team goes 10-6 and goes to the playoffs, if Dak Prescott just has anything slightly close to that, Prescott's going to win it because he's a Cowboy. But speaking of that, there have been no extension talks, so that's still drama. That he could be going to Indianapolis. We'll talk about that in a little while. And yes, I do want to – this is a good point. I have not thought about this. If you're sitting here and saying that Carson Wentz, he's afraid of competition, things like that, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I think it's terrible. Stop protecting the kid's ego, but Hurts also did transfer out when Tua won the job. So just leaving that there. Nothing against Jalen Hurts at all, but that's a point that I've actually not seen or have thought of in a little while.
I'm gonna just throw this out there too, Zach. When it comes, no one expected Tua Tagovailoa, wherever his last name is, to be thrown in that situation. You lost your job in the national championship game. Do I agree with Hurts running away and start competing? I don't think. Zach, I'm always about competition. Compete for your job. Play for your job back. He did run. Oklahoma. He had success there. Didn't win the national championship, but he did take it to the playoffs. Zach, there was another team that could have been in there. We know that. But Carson Wentz is a competitor. All right? He didn't back down from the challenge. He stood there. Well, when he wasn't getting sacked, he stood there. He took the beating. He kept playing. I got to give it. His heart was in the right place. I'll say that. But his mind wasn't there. The mechanics wasn't there.
The level of criticism and the amount of scrutiny he's gotten for not saying a single word publicly is incredibly unfair and unfortunate.
Go ahead.
And also both of them, him and Jalen Hurts are two great people. And I can't emphasize, I feel so bad for Hurts unless he wins a job. All props to him. I don't think he controls his destiny. I confidently tell you right now, there's a hard bias to Carson Wentz only because of the contract commitment and nothing else. But I mean, I don't know why we drafted him second. If we trade him, we better get a second round pick in return on another player because that team might want him. Maybe I don't even know where he'd go. But end of the day, Carson Wentz, it's kind of his job to lose. I like that Sirianni's going to hold him accountable. If he responds well, there's no reason to believe he won't be successful here. I don't care what anybody says right now. I'll believe it when I see it, and that goes for both sides of the ball.
Zach, I don't get why people have a problem for him not saying anything. Zach, in this day and age where everybody says something, everybody always has something to say, you get scrutinized for saying something, so you get scrutinized for not saying nothing. You can't have it both ways. Zach, go out Carson Wentz is pushing himself out of Philadelphia behind the scenes. Good for him. Don't make a big scene about it. Be quiet about your business and go on about it. Now, Carson Wentz isn't saying anything about it and doesn't want to say anything about it. That's his Zach. That's his right. He doesn't.
Not typically tweeting like Deshaun Watson is. Where's the criticism for Watson? Why doesn't Watson get criticized? I'm curious. I mean, we sit here and we respect him. We say we understand your situation. You want to get out of there, but why is it different in Philadelphia, where you had a head coach that you had an issue with, and you had a couple other things, and they benched you? I don't know why it's any different, honestly. I mean, if you're going to scrutinize one, scrutinize the other. If you're not going to scrutinize one, don't scrutinize the other. I'll take that path. I won't scrutinize Deshaun Watson. I won't scrutinize Carson Wentz. That's my stance on this. When you're a player and you hold leverage, you can get what you want as long as you can back it up. I'd say Deshaun Watson backed it up a lot better than Carson Wentz this year, but Wentz is keeping his mouth shut. So that's my final stance on that.
Here's the reason why I think people are scrutinizing Carson Wentz more than Deshaun Watson. When you have ESPN coming out with a statistic that you count up for 80% of his yards, and Zach, Houston kind of set this man up to fail.
But then again, how did the Eagles not set up? And I mean, if you can agree with me, you can sit here and say, "Look, I agree with you."
I would disagree with you. I'm just saying
because, look, you drafted a quarterback in the second round. You draft a wide receiver out of TCU instead of taking the obvious pick. What did the Eagles do this season to give Carson Wentz more support? Like, imagine if we had DeAndre Hopkins, like Deshaun Watson did last year. He didn't have scrubs at wide receiver. I'm sorry, he didn't. He had much better wide receivers than the Eagles. I know guys got banged up. The reason they lost games was because their O-line was terrible. Their run game was not efficient. They had drama in the coaching staff, and their defense was horrific. That's why they lost games this year. It wasn't because of their quarterback play. The Eagles lost this year because of everything that results down to QB play. The O-line was not great. The receivers literally couldn't get open, and your quarterback plays hero ball. Look, for a game or two, it's cute that Jalen Hurts was able to get us a few early score. We didn't score a point in the second half, but that's fine. Or maybe we scored 3 points against the Saints, so our defense was able to win that game. I like Jalen Hurts. If you're a rookie and you're posing similar numbers in the same circumstances as your veteran counterpart, it makes a good case for you. But at the same time, it just shows how flawed this franchise is as well. So I'm taking that case. We got to wrap up here in a minute, but I'll take the side of not scrutinizing either one if they're in that circumstance. I give Deshaun the benefit of the doubt because his numbers were good this year, though.
Zach, I'm not going to scrutinize anyone because everybody's entitled to have their own opinion and their own feeling because, Zach, that's what America is. Apparently, we're not allowed to have that because when you do, as soon as you say anything, people have a problem with what you say. So, Zach, I'm not going to criticize anybody for how they conduct their business. Zach, if you believe in something, believe in it and get out. And that's what you want to do. Having said all that, Zach, I came out and said, you said it before I did, when it comes to this year's problem with the Eagles, it wasn't all Carson Wentz's fault. Zach, you know who I blame. I blame Howard Roseman for everything. Zach, and I'm only the reason why I think everybody's quick to blame Carson Wentz is because we've seen the greatness of what he was, and everybody thinks he can get right back to that. Howard is the real problem of Philadelphia. Until we get this man out of the city, which I've been calling for, Zach, do we need to go on a protest? Do we need to go down there and hold signs and say fire Howard Roseman now, and not say please, just say now and maybe get 53 other people to stand with us? I don't know. But Carson Wentz isn't the problem. Did he have a problematic year this year? Yeah. Were there things that could have helped him? Could have changed there. You could have got a couple wide receivers. Could have made a better draft choice. You had to draft his successor. I don't think he's a successor. You just ruined another man's career, Zach. That's the way I view it. Final point is this, ladies and gentlemen. wherever these men go, whether one stays and one leaves, where they both leave, just support them. They're good people. Zach, Carson Wentz is a good guy. Never had a problem with Carson Wentz. Not at all. I mean, what's the worst thing you ever heard about him?
The worst thing I've heard about him is that he audibles at the line, which Jalen Hurts also did. I don't want to hear it from anybody. Honestly, I'm done with these anonymous reports. Come out and say it yourself. Alshon Jeffrey doing something this year.
But why is that always an anonymous thing? Why, Zach? You brought this up.
No one is manned up enough to actually come out and say I have a problem with Carson Wentz. Orlando Scandrick, who we don't love, was skipping Shannon again this year and said that Carson Wentz is not the issue. Malcolm Jenkins came out and said they didn't do him any justice with his ego, but he didn't come out and say he was a big problem in the locker room. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, all these guys backed Carson Wentz the second reports come out. I'm done hearing uneducated bias. I'm done hearing stupid people. Honestly, I'll say it. I'm sorry to insult you. I'm done hearing people read Josina Anderson reports about how bad of a teammate Carson Wentz is, especially when you made fun of him for getting a concussion last year. But that's all things considered. No, there's no reason to give him the scrutiny. If he comes out and ruins his reputation, you are more than welcome to do it, my friend. But I haven't seen a dang thing. Look up AO1.com before you make fun of Carson Wentz. That's all I have to say. Wrap up today.
Look up why don't you go find a free food truck around the city and then come back to me and see what you said. Zach, there's nothing you can hate about this guy. Him and Zach Ertz, or just him. I'm not even gonna put Zach Ertz in this conversation. Him as a person, a great person. No, says Zach. I know you have to run, but
without that, we'll continue the conversation. He has to prove he can play well, and this team is doing whatever they can. It looks like at the moment to help him, I guess. I mean, you need to give him the best coach. They think that moving the cold tier is going to fix it. Just like my plans to go skiing, we have brought the cold weather here so I can ski here. But with that being said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us again today on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Have a good one, everybody. Stay safe.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all